government expenditure isn't always able to be subverted or replaced by jobs and business developments and so on. There are some things like child protection and so on which continue to be legitimate areas of government. And I have a particular interest in these expenditures as they affect Indigenous people because we are a society. We're one society. Injustice to one is injustice to all. So let me set the background of how all this fits together. Every year the Commonwealth apportions money amongst the various states and territories of what's called the GST distribution. How this money is distributed is determined by the Commonwealth Grants Commission and makes assessments of the expenditure that is necessary in each of a whole range of areas so that, assuming an equal starting point, you can maintain parity across Australia. It takes into account all the different costs of delivering services. It obviously costs more here than it would in Darwin. All those things are adjusted for. At the end of each year, the states and territories all report back to the Commonwealth. And after the event, the Commonwealth Grants Commission publishes that information. And in the 1990s and the 2000s, there was a pattern of spending by the NT government that was considerably less than the assessments that was made. And if you look at the screens, you'll see a screen of a figure in 2006-7. 2 million is spent against a Commonwealth Grants Commission assessment of 14 million. And those Commonwealth Grants Commission assessments are the money that is actually provided to the states and territories. These are figures for the Northern Territory, 2006-7. Family and Children's Services, child protection. The NT government got 179 million, spent 43. Horrifying figures. Hopefully you can all see and read the screens. Homeless and general welfare, underspent. Housing, underspent. Services to Indigenous communities. Got 218 million, spent 110. Disgraceful. And so it goes on. There were no areas of significant overspending in that year. When I was with NT COS, as Marcia alluded to, as the President, we submitted these to the review of the NT emergency response, the review of the intervention. They were taken up by the media and given wide publicity throughout Australia. That led to a Senate inquiry in 2008, late 2008. Senate inquiry into government expenditure on Indigenous affairs and social services in the Northern Territory. Now, unfortunately, the terms of reference for that inquiry referred to the Commonwealth Grants Commission funding formula. On party lines, the inquiry found that the Grants Commission made assessments, not applied formulas, and were unable to make a finding. But there were a couple of things that came out of that Senate inquiry. The NT government promised to increase spending on relevant areas by an amount of 286 million over 5 years, about 10% of the underspending. Also, the other thing that came out of it was that the Grants Commission reporting framework changed to become much more opaque. And I have to tell you that NT Treasury officials could not conceal their delight when they told me of the changes. That's the reality. Anyway, so... sorry? Yeah. I was trying to avoid it, but I'll let you... yeah. So moving forward, we'll just see if this pattern continued and what's happened. So we look at some figures there. They should be on the screen for 2009-10. Commonwealth Grants Commission, one of the introducing the opaqueness of the reporting, they amalgamated and aggregated things into bulk headings. Welfare and housing, still got this same pattern, underspent by 201 million. Justice services by 155 million. Look at the other side of the coin. When I can get my fingers to turn the page here. Services to industry. Allocated and received, or assessed and received 97 million, spent 241 million. Other expenses, which includes a whole range of stuff, overspent by 377 million. It just goes forward. So moving forward, the pattern continues through to 2013-14, which is the most recent year for which we have Commonwealth Grants Commission published information. And you'll see there that school education actually underspent by 67 million. Housing underspent by 24 million. Welfare underspent by 103 million. Services to communities underspent by 134 million. Justice underspent by 69 million. Now, undoubtedly, the automatic response, and it has been in the past from the NT government, is, oh, well, these figures are out of date, things have changed. Well, let's go into the bowels of the NT budget papers. Sorry, folks, I'll try to limit it, but so from 13-14 up to 15-16, the current financial year we've just started, NT budget appropriations increased from 4.7 billion to 5.2 billion, 10.6%. So there's an extra 1.5 billion there. Has there been any attempt to remedy the past underspending over the last 25 or so years? I could bore you with a raft of figures, but the answer is no. The increases in those line items, if we got the budgeted departmental expenditure for 13-14 through to 15-16, yeah, the increase in those figures is 10.9%. 10.6% in the appropriations, 10.9%, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But one of the problems that we have in trying to make sense of these budget papers is there is little correlation, and Brian would confirm this, between the headings on which the NT budgets its funds and the headings under which the Commonwealth Grants Commission makes its assessments. So there's no comparative reporting in the NT budget papers against the expected Grants Commission assessments. Not only that, and this goes to what John was saying a couple of minutes ago, the budget papers only really disclose any geographic location of where the spending's occurred if it's significant enough to be included in their puff piece called Regional Highlights. To be genuine, I'll hark back to John's figure of, he found at Wadaya that 47 cents in the dollar was being spent on education. To be genuinely transparent, the NT government should publish budgeted revenue with its comparisons to the Grants Commission assessments, and that should be done in advance. And I also believe that this pattern over the last 25 or 30 years is such that there should be an independent Indigenous monitoring body with the capacity and authority to analyse and report on budgets and subsequent expenditure of each state and territory as they affect Indigenous Australians. With specific attention, because it's my pet hobby horse, to the corresponding Grants Commission assessments, which provide a common basis of comparison after adjustments for the costs of service delivery, provide a common basis of comparison between the states and territories. And the independent analysis should extend to a more detailed breakdown of the component parts so that you can get a picture of the geographical fairness of the spending priorities in the NT, because the adverse spending patterns are too persistent to do otherwise. Thank you.